Hey everybody, Oledreth Malorn here, and today we're going to be recording what I hope will be the first episode in a brief series of a lightsaber conversion from a pretty decent toy into something a little more grown-up and robust. What we have here is the Disney Store exclusive Kylo Ren Lightsaber, and we're going to do a little bit of a review of it because when I convert this over into a more grown-up lightsaber toy, if you will, I'm going to be retaining all of the functionality, I hope. So the first thing is that I want to do is talk about the sculpt on this, and it's actually really impressive. I've compared this to a lot of high-res photos that I've found online, and other than obviously being made out of plastic and having screw holes in it, it's pretty darn close to the actual prop. A couple of differences some of you more, well, specific nerds will notice is that the blade length is, holy crap, way short. This is maybe a 3-foot long blade in total, and Kylo Ren's was much larger. I will say that this toy was designed for smaller people than me. I'm 6.5 feet tall. Another major difference is that the two quillions on the lightsaber are also slightly smaller, and the emitter here, which accommodates this really cheap plastic blade, is much larger than on the actual prop. That being said, the model is quite impressive. There's a lot of features that they had to exaggerate, like in here, in the actual prop, this is recessed and a lot more detailed, but little hands get caught on things. But just how much of this they went straight from the original prop, it was quite impressive. Alright, let's get into some of the features of this thing. You'll notice along the length of the blade and down on these little quillions there's some texturing that's trying to emulate the instability of the Kylo Ren saber. It does its job. I'm not too impressed with it. It's also really flimsy, squishable plastic. Compare that to something like an Ultra Saber blade or a JQ Saber blade. They are much thicker and much more robust. I will actually be using Ultra Saber blades specifically in the build that I base off of this. Down here on the bottom, let's get into the functions of the lightsaber now. Down here on the bottom there is a kill switch with 3 settings. It's got off, demo, and on. In off mode, if you push this, I don't know if the camera picked that up, but the blade will flash once. That's the activator button, by the way, that little recessed nub. The blade will flash once, but otherwise it won't do anything. It completely disengages from the power system. In the demo mode, which is the first click, it will actually briefly run through a sequence of what it's capable of. And I'm going to go ahead and push the activator switch now so you can see that. So as you can see, the blade ignites, it flashes, the quillions come on, it does some stuff, and then it shuts back down. In the on mode, it'll do all of those same things, except that instead of shutting down on its own, it stays on. The soundboard in this thing is freaking fantastic. It sounds angry and hungry. It sounds hangry. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, I don't even know if that's a word, but it does sound incredible. It's got flash on clash, it's got very different sound effects, and I don't know if you can pick that up, but as I'm moving it, the lightsaber is actually changing its sounds. So it's got some kind of inertial sensor in it. But let's go ahead and shut that down. So the sound comes out of a speaker that is recessed here into the pommel. And as I mentioned before, that's the power switch. That is the functionality of the lightsaber. And again, I plan on in the build retaining all of that functionality in the new body that I'm going to craft out for this thing. So let's go ahead now and start the disassembly so that we can take a look at what's inside of here and see what we're working with. To begin, we're going to switch this thing back to off and disengage the power system. I know it only runs on batteries, but shocks are not pleasant. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the battery cover. And thanks to ShadowTracer for lending me his precision screwdriver set. Remove the battery cover and we can see in here, it's a pretty standard setup. We've got 3 AA's. So when we remove the batteries, you can actually see here, there's this little piece that slides up and down to keep tension on both of those. That's pretty cool. It's a nice little thing to keep the batteries from bouncing out. But it also reveals that there are 3 more screws in the body than I had initially anticipated, as you can see there. And 2 and 3. So now the battery pack section at least has been loosed from the main frame. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like, more main body screws that we are going to start removing now. I am the pro cross-hilted lightsaber school, where I believe that it's about damn time that somebody came up with that kind of innovation for lightsabers. I have been absolutely in love with the Kylo Ren saber, to the extent of, like, basically drooling over it. Especially the Black Series, which there are several other reviews of other people who have them online. They're fantastic to check out, and if you're interested in actually owning a good prop replica that lights up and does all of the movie stuff, it's not a bad buy. It runs about $200 to $280. There are some places that'll try to price gouge you, but for the most part, that's what you're going to pay. Anyway, so being absolutely enamored with the idea of a cross-hilted lightsaber, these were on sale, and I thought to myself, you know what, just for shits and giggles, I'm going to pick this up to just to have it and do stuff with it. I was not unimpressed. I'd handled them before, and while looking at it, I have some experience with a modeling program called 3D Studio Max. I realized that if I could design my own hilt, one to more my specifications, I could probably take the internals out of this and put them into the new body, which is what brought us here. So I've taken all visible screws out of the body, and I'm going to attempt now to start gently... Whoop! Hey, look at that. And I'm going to continue to attempt to gently pull apart sections of this lightsaber. It looks like the other side of this also comes loose. This is loaded in on a spring, and as it turns out, both sides of the pommel come off and independently. That's pretty cool. And we're still not seeing any additional screws, which is good. So, as I said before, I'm just going to continue to pry at places that, if anyone's ever taken a toy apart before, you know where to put your hands, and see how much of this I can remove without destroying it. In order to fully separate the body, if you want to attempt this, which, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't, please, for the love of God, take off these 3 pieces, well, these 5 pieces, first, before taking apart any of the screws. Because I learned that while I was trying to pull these off, because the screws were out, like, the whole handle was flexing with my twists and my pulls. And it turns out that some of these things are held on by both clips and adhesive. This piece, for example, which sits right here on the lightsaber, is clipped in 2 places, here and here, but it's also put on with adhesive, so a heat gun or something would suffice. I just muscled the crap out of it until it came off. These ones, on the other hand, are held on by these clips on either side of the emitter and pass into holes corresponding on the blades. You don't discover that until you remove the emitter housings, which now mine are all scratched up, but it's okay, because I can fix all of this with a little bit of time and some epoxy. But these are pressure fit by a freaking gorilla onto these, which holds them onto these. So the procedure for taking this apart is get a fucking Dremel. So what happens next is I'm going to take the 2 screws that I had the wherewithal to put back in. And by the way, pan over the table real quick. I just want you to see everything you see on this table right now, as far as tools are concerned, was used in the removal of those 5 little parts. Oh my god, it came off. Oh, okay then. But the more interesting parts were the internals, which we have laid out right here. This is all the parts that are actually going to make it into the rebuild. We have the basic power switch, which is right here, on-off. We have the control board. This power right here is actually for a tiny magnetic motor that causes the lightsaber to vibrate when struck. It's actually a pretty ingenious little system. Lots of techno-babble that I don't know a whole lot about, but ShadowTracer does, so that's why I'm glad I have him. And this 3-stage switch, which I plan on retaining in the new build. We will not be reusing this in the build system. We're going to do something different, which fed inside of this, which has these spacers, which fed into this one, which then sat inside this one. So all in all, at least that part, I was really impressed with the ingenuity behind it. So, I mean, if you guys enjoyed this, I am glad you came along. I hope you learned something, because I sure as hell did. If you have any questions about lightsaber conversions or anything, just feel free to hit ShadowTracer in the comments. He'll get them to me, and I'll be happy to get back to you guys as soon as I can. Thanks!